Springfield's Talk 1041. Welcome, everyone. How do you do? My name is Nick Reed, and it is Wednesday, which means, of course, for us, it is Lunch Bunch Day. We're going to be heading over to Godfather's with our winner today and 5 of that winner's choosings to enjoy one another's company over all you can eat. Godfather's Pizza Salad Bar. If you want to get signed up, go to ksgf.com. And if you win, we'll get you in the loop. We'll reach out to you, and then we'll get all set up to have ourselves a nice little lunch. Now, also while you're there, let's see. St. Louis Cardinals are going to be in town, facing off against the Springfield Cardinals March 23rd. The game is clearly going to be a sellout, but we have your chance to win a family 4-pack of tickets. All you have to do to register for your chance to win is go to ksgf.com. So you can register for that and Lunch Bunch with Godfather's Pizza all in one fell swoop. And then, of course, if you haven't heard the announcements running this week, it is a Burleson breakfast coming up at Scramblers on Friday. So that period of time that we are also out there broadcasting on Friday between 6A and 9A, the Burleson folks will be out there. And if you have a Burleson bumper sticker on your car, or if you don't have one, they'll give you one to put on there, then they're going to buy you breakfast. So opportunity for you to get breakfast out there at Scramblers Friday, 6 to 9 a.m., while we are going to also be out there broadcasting at the same time as we always do on Fridays. I thought we'd start off with some Epstein news. How about some Epstein news? All right. We had yesterday the Epstein news of, I like to bring in the new stuff, not the complaining because we don't know anything stuff, but the new stuff. And yesterday there were reports about in some of the unsealed information that Trump apparently didn't do a very good job of covering up. Because we're told all this stuff is being covered up, yet we constantly find out about the stuff because of released documents. And that one, so there were 2 guards that were let go because, according to the official investigation, when Epstein hung himself, they were falsifying paperwork, claiming that they were checking on inmates when they weren't actually doing that, and so they also were subsequently charged with, I forget what they were charged with, but those charges were actually dropped. Now, it's perspective. A lot of people say, well, of course, obviously, if you have a couple of employees that are in on it, they're gonna be falsifying the documents for reasons to cover their tracks. Obviously, the excuse that they were just napping and lazy and not actually doing their job as they were supposed to do it is just a cover for the fact that they had some hand in Jeffrey Epstein's death. But I recognize that they are federal government employees also at the same time. Now, I have very good friends. Some of my best friends, in fact, are federal government employees. So clearly I don't cast a full wide net that they are all individuals that do whatever it is they can to get out of work. But to me, it's kind of a 50-50 when you're talking about a couple of Washington, D.C. Federal prison employees. Were they actually in on some nefarious plot to kill Jeffrey Epstein, or were they just worthless employees that were collecting a paycheck while taking naps while on the job? I think that's kind of a 50-50, to be honest with you. Jeffrey Epstein, if there's a plot, in fact, to murder him, or if there was a plot, that would be a bonus. You'd think, that actually would be beneficial to the people carrying out, like, oh, listen, we don't have to worry that much about the guards because let me tell you what, they're actually napping half the time. They're lying on the forms when they're supposed to check in on the inmates every so often. They just sign that stuff, sort of like when you go to a public restroom and they have the little clipboard sometimes to demonstrate to customers, oh, look how often we check the bathroom. Look, the employees sign off on it. Yeah, it's the same sort of thing, but they're just lying about it. And so this is going to be a lot easier than one might think. So, it's 50-50 in my opinion. Now, what added to that intrigue was the fact that Chase, the account holder for one of those employees, had flagged transactions as suspicious leading up to the killing of Jeffrey Epstein because of a series of irregular cash deposits to her account. I believe 10 total, the final one of $5,000, just a week or two before Jeffrey Epstein was found dead in his cell. So as you can imagine, now again, at 50-50. Was this some sort of payoff? What was it? Just a consistent payoff over, to feed intel. All right, what are the patterns? What's going on in there? Then to look the other way as opposed to actually being involved in it. Who knows? Or could have been selling drugs on the side. Don't know. Could have been selling drugs to the inmates. Have no idea. No clue. It's all 50-50 for me on this stuff. All right, but here's the latest. New York Post. Mysterious Zorro Ranch, once owned by Epstein, where girls' bodies are allegedly buried, is searched by New Mexico authorities. Now, I want to share with you some of the information that allegedly is out there. Supposedly, according to some of the reports, Jeffrey Epstein, we have all the focus on the island, but it was actually in New Mexico that he was planning on starting like his own entire race of people by breeding women and then, killing some of them off and burying them on the land. And so New Mexico authorities are now carrying out a search at that ranch. So that information coming up. The Pyramid Roofing Company text line 447 KSGF. Latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see showers and thunderstorms likely throughout the day, otherwise cloudy, with the temperature falling to around 45 by 4 p.m. Tonight, mostly cloudy with a low around 30. For your Thursday, sunny skies with a high near 60. And taking a look at Friday, sunny with a high near 67.
We are on YouTube.
That is correct.
Yes, you can watch us and hear us there for those of you that, this is a weird situation because if you are outside of the param or the distance to where you can hear us over the air, you can't hear us over the air, so you rely on line, and then you're going to your traditional like the app and you're not hearing us, then you're not hearing me right now explaining that yes, we know that that's not working, but you can listen to us on YouTube. But nonetheless, we are on YouTube now. We do know that apparently as of yesterday sometime the stream is not making it, or at least the content of the stream, to our website and to our app. And really it just boils down to the fact that we're a train wreck. That's pretty much what it is. Other than the content we provide, that's pretty solid. But every so often something like that happens, and I know it's very frustrating. Trust me. Oh, trust me.
Yes.
You think you get frustrated. Imagine.
You don't know.
Yeah, imagine, because here's what's going through my mind as I am performing for you. Is the knowledge that it is not going to a lot of people that normally it would. That is extremely frustrating. So I get it. I'm with you 100%. And we've already sent off to what we believe are the relevant people, messaging to let them know that this is a problem that needs to be remedied. We're with you. We're all in this together, as they say. latest Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line message. Is streaming still down? Well, you tell me. Why
The
are you
answer is
texting the question?
the answer is I'm pretty sure it is because I listened and it went to dead air. Ugh.
As I was explaining that, and yes, we know, other than our ad partners, and how it's frustrating for us to, though we're glad that you're letting us know. I mean, yes,
Yeah,
that's
that's
good.
not the frustrating
no,
thing.
that's not the frustrating thing. But this is what it's like for us. This is, if you've ever been driving your car and it breaks down in the middle of the intersection and people are really annoyed at you, even though they know it's not your fault, right? You didn't do anything wrong. It's your car, but still they're honking and they're giving you glares, and you're there and you're in the car and you're like, well, I'm even more angry than you. I'm the one who's stuck here. That's kind of what it's like. I think that's a
Yeah.
fair.
That's a good one. Yeah.
Speaking of, we're going to get to this, the Epstein thing here, but let me find it because I printed it off. The intersection,
Oh,
South
yes.
Kansas or Kansas Express
Sunshine?
and Sunshine,
Yes.
that has the city has a giant QR code thing set up there, and it's been there forever. And I was stopped. What was I doing? I think it was actually, what's today? Wednesday, maybe Monday, when I was coming. Well, I was just coming back to the station, and I thought, well, I'm going to snap a picture of that. And it went to the city's website, all about safety for driving and pedestrian safety. I'm trying to think. Well, why ever do you laugh?
Why?
Yeah.
Because why? They're all, don't use your phone. No.
Oh, I know.
No
Well, it's against the
phones.
law.
Yes.
So
no,
I broke.
No phones.
So I broke the law. It's like entrapment. I
It
broke
is.
the law in order to find out what traffic intersection safety information that the city of Springfield wanted me to know by putting up a QR code there on a sign that you are only able to access the information by getting out your phone or an iPad, some sort of device, which is illegal to do, of course, while you're driving, in order to obtain that information. And so it takes you to the Help Without the Hazard, Springfield, Missouri, and it's all about safety at intersections. And some of it is focused around, these panhandlers that take advantage of people's ignorance in terms of, believing that there's no services for these people and that they have no other option in Springfield other than to panhandle, when in fact there are plenty of options, plenty of resources. Anytime we spend segments talking about, and it's been a while, but panhandlers, the people who would text in and call in the most saying do not give to those people are the people who provide services. So it's not these cold-hearted individuals that don't care about the plight of the homeless. They are people who devote their lives to helping them. And they're saying, listen, those people are they are just wanting cash for drugs or for alcohol, because if they really needed food, all of that stuff exists. There's plenty of that. And so the city provides information, saying, hey, we know, like it says on the site, the Springfield community is a generous one, with locals often feeling driven to help those in urgent need. The passion for giving is most visible along Springfield's busiest roadways, where a quick couple of bills or gift cards handed out in windows a regular sight. However, while giving in this way is convenient and well intended, it can put both drivers and recipients at risk. And anyhow, it just goes on to talk about ways to improve safety if you're driving, particularly at intersections. And it's just ironic that what is to be considered one of the most dangerous things one can do while driving is to utilize a cell phone. And so much so, in fact, they have made it illegal, even if you're completely stopped at a stoplight. And this has been up there forever. I mean, I know over a year I've been talking about that stupid QR code that the government has set up at the intersection of Kansas Expressway and Sunshine, so that you have to get out your phone in order to access the information about intersection safety. So you have to do it. I guess you might as well have information that they will only provide you if you're doing shots, because it's about distracted driving. And they equate oftentimes the usage of cell phones while driving to be just as dangerous as driving while drunk, at least some certain degree. Yet here they are. Here's a QR code. Get out your phone and use it. It's government.
I think you should reach out to the city.
I mean, they'd probably double down and start putting them at additional intersections, because the city of Springfield, anytime a resident points out something that is counter to what makes sense or what is good for the community, they seem to double down on it. They probably would start putting them at every intersection and utilize cameras to make sure that you're actually taking pictures or using your phone in order to access that info. But if that doesn't sum up government and Springfield government, I certainly don't know what else does. All right, coming up, inside Jeffrey Epstein's macabre and strange New Mexico ranch, where authorities are hunting for, quote, dead foreign girls. This is new developing information. Next, I'm Nick Reed. New Mexico authorities have descended on Jeffrey Epstein's Zorro Ranch in New Mexico after a campaign to investigate the, quote, macabre and strange claims about the property. The pedophile millionaire plotted to use the ranch as a baby factory to seed the earth with more perfect humans, according to reports. He also allegedly buried the victims of deadly sex games there, filmed horrific child porn, and had a bizarre labyrinth garden that is now a massive hole in the ground. Despite the horrifying claims about Zorro Ranch, there has never been a thorough search of the property by law enforcement. Much of the new push to turn over the 33,000 square foot compound came from a local radio host who received a horrifying tip-off in November of 2019, just 3 months after Epstein killed himself. Eddie Aragon has spent the years since investigating the claims about Zorro Ranch, and he believes the secrets the property holds will horrify the world. Quote, "This is way beyond just burying bodies at Zorro Ranch. This is something far more macabre and strange than you think or have thought of," he recently told the Santa Fe New Mexican. "These are things, if I were to say them, would make me seem crazy or conspiratorial, and it's not," he added. He was the one who received the anonymous email about the compound. Quote, "Did you know something in the hills outside the Zorro? 2 foreign girls were buried on orders of Jeffrey and Madam G," the message said, referring to Epstein's paramour, Ghislaine Maxwell. Quote, "Both died by strangulation during rough fetish sex," the email added. "What is damning about Jeffrey Epstein is yet to be written." Maxwell, who's serving federal prison time after she was convicted of sex trafficking charges, has not been charged of any crimes related to deaths at Zorro Ranch. And so let's see here. Okay, I've got a couple minutes before traffic. The letter, claiming to be written by a ranch employee, quote, "that has been there and seen it all," end quote, and it didn't include further details about the deaths, however, instead demanding Aragon pay 1 Bitcoin worth about $6,500 at the time to an anonymous digital wallet within a day in return for a USB full of damning information. Aragon did not pay, but forwarded to the FBI, saying that it could be real. It remains unclear whether the FBI ever investigated the tip, but on Monday, more than 6 years later, Zorro Ranch was swarmed by New Mexico police in one of the first major searches of the property since Epstein's world was exposed to the public. The home about 30 miles south of Santa Fe has since been sold to a family of former Texas State Senator Don Huffiness, who are cooperating fully with the investigation. The final sale price is unknown, but it was listed at around $18 million shortly before the sale. It remains unclear what investigators are doing on the property since they arrived, but chunks of the land have already been dug up since the home was sold in 2023, with recent photos showing a deep hole in the ground where the sprawling maze-like garden the size of the palatial house once sprawled. And while Aragon never heard back from the FBI about the tip-off, his own reporting has led him to believe investigators could find paradigm-changing information about the Epstein scandal. He said he knows which former Epstein staffer sent the email, who said they had taken information about the bodies and damning videos of the pedophile as, quote, insurance in case of future litigation. And so that underway in New Mexico.
Springfield's Talk 1041, the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by J&S Automotive. Today we'll see showers and thunderstorms likely throughout the day, otherwise cloudy, with a temperature falling to around 45 by 4 p.m. Tonight, mostly cloudy with a low around 30. For your Thursday, sunny with a high near 60. And for Friday, sunny skies with a high near 67.
I'm a little surprised that there isn't more mainstream news covering the fact that this Epstein Ranch in New Mexico has, for the very first time on the property, law enforcement that are digging holes in the ground.
Yeah, no kidding.
I mean, and I understand that obviously Iran is taking up a big chunk of the news. But given that the media, I think that some of this is a sign that the media, with the release of files, when it really gets down to it, and they have gone through it. Unlike the vast majority of Americans, the media really did go through, and I could tell you what they did is they pull it up in their software and they just put Trump in, and they read anything, because you hear Trump his name's in it more than anyone's name is in it. Okay, but what does it say? The media knows what it says. And it's either crazy rantings from people who are clearly not credible because of other claims that they have made. I've listed some of these, which include Hillary Clinton was the one that actually blew up the federal building in Oklahoma City. Not just arranged it, but it wasn't Timothy McVeigh. She's the one that carried out that operation. Allegations from somebody claiming that they were sex trafficked on a yacht that had George W. Bush, and it was Jay-Z or somebody was DJing on the ship. I mean, just these clearly insane allegations, and really the only substantial portions of in terms of references to Trump that were attached to reality, or in which he was the one blowing the whistle on Jeffrey Epstein as far back as 2006. I saw a headline yesterday that idiot Whoopi Goldberg claiming that all of this stuff in Iran is to distract from Ghislaine Maxwell. In 2006, one of the first times that we actually see on record in which authorities were informed about Ghislaine Maxwell was because of Donald Trump. This is one of the Trump references in the files. In Florida, when prosecutors began to demonstrate that they were essentially trying to not have to prosecute Jeffrey Epstein, it was Donald Trump that was on the phone, according to the Epstein files, with the lead investigator saying, you guys cannot let this go. Jeffrey Epstein is a really bad guy. He's doing, bad stuff that needs to be investigated. And by the way, you need to look at this Ghislaine Maxwell, his sidekick chick, because she is, I think he even used the word evil, if I remember right, according to the reports. And so, that I think part of the reason the media hasn't been hounding the Epstein files to the degree that they were for a while is because they don't want to focus on it too much, because if you start really getting down to it, they know what's in there, and they know that it's clear. The files themselves demonstrate that of all the people, Trump was the only one that was essentially telling authorities that you got to get this guy. That being said, it's still it's crazy for all of this concern and that the media. You've got this going on, and you just don't have more profound coverage of law enforcement digging holes on the property of Epstein's ranch out in New Mexico. Now, it's, the New York Post story notes that they aren't sure that, it's not being said why, but at the same time, there's, I guess, some local radio host out there who received an anonymous letter saying, oh, there's dead bodies out here and all this sort of stuff, and I have proof, and if you send me, I forgot, some Bitcoin amount, then I'll give you the proof. Well, I mean, come on. Really? I mean, If I receive something, now that guy said he just sent it to the FBI, but for him it sparked, according to the New York Post, this belief that, well, something did happen there and his real intrigue in it. And it's not to say something wasn't going on there, nefarious, illegal. It's not even to say that there aren't dead bodies there. But I mean, this is where, unfortunately, the Jeffrey Epstein, I don't want to call it hysteria, because there is truth to the fact, I believe, all the evidence shows, people got away with things that they should not have gotten away with. Really bad things. But that pendulum has swung to the point that it is, to some degree, like a witch hunt. Anyone and everyone that says, well, wait, maybe that doesn't make sense. Well, you're part of the cover-up, or you're in denial, and it's like, no, I'm just looking at facts here. While I was just Friday at dinner having a conversation with a friend, and he was, the way he was describing his thoughts on it, he's an intelligent human being, I felt were pretty in line with my thoughts on it, and that is, you got this spectrum of, oh, he probably didn't do anything wrong, this is all blown out of proportion, to he was slicing open babies and squeezing their blood into Capri Sun pouches to hand out at parties, and everything in between. I believe it's just beyond evident that there were illegal activities going on that involved underage girls being sold for purposes of sexual pleasure for wealthy individuals. I also just, the sheer number of allegations indicates some of them probably aren't true. Just the vast number of allegations. I think a reasonable person, without knowing anything about the political implications, I mean, you think about a tip line because some of this stuff was tip line stuff. Anytime a tip line is set up anywhere, look at the Savannah Guthrie deal. As soon as, every time there was a new dollar amount offered up as a reward, they would talk about this many tips came in, and we investigate all of them, and they turn out to be nothing. And that's just the nature of these things. Not every single allegation that gets made turns out to be valid, and not every person who simply, I sat. There's this many, the Epstein files and all the, I mean, just because you send an email to a guy doesn't mean that you are buying kids to have sex with from the guy. I several years ago, had lunch with someone that today is sitting in prison for killing off half her family. Now, in the lens of the Epstein situation, I essentially would be accused of, well, because he had lunch with her, he clearly was part of it. No. Obviously did not know that this was something that this individual was doing, killing off members of her family. Had no clue whatsoever when I was having lunch with this person and a number of other people. It was a mixed group of individuals. And the problem is, because of just this, the suspicion people have is completely warranted, 100%. The recognition that we aren't told the truth about much of this stuff from government, people in government, 100% warranted, without question. But the problem has become this, it is, I think, to a degree, for some people, almost a paranoia that the minute anyone says, but some of this stuff doesn't really seem that and I think jumping to conclusions on stuff, well, then, you're in denial, you're naive, and it has gotten to where it's almost counterproductive, in my opinion, because, for example, if nothing is found in this search of Zorro Ranch out in New Mexico, owned by Jeffrey Epstein, that will be proof that it's a cover-up. So literally, there's no scenario. It's almost like the left when it comes to racism. Like no scenario exists in which you can, as a white person, be exonerated. Because if you're actually not racist, that proves you're racist because you don't recognize that racism exists. Like there's no getting out of it. It doesn't make any difference. No matter how racist you are, you're racist. No matter how not racist you are racist. And when it comes now to the entire Epstein situation, like whenever there's proof and evidence, obviously, okay, yes, there's proof and evidence. But whenever, okay, well, let's look into this, we didn't find anything. Well, there's never, oh, okay, well, that was thoroughly investigated. I guess that one's not legit. That instead is further proof that this thing is a vast cover-up. And by the way, Iran is to distract us. And I think it unfortunately discredits a lot of the legitimate stuff because it all becomes so much noise and everything becomes about Epstein. And when you start, and even Massey, sending out that remark on X that, bombing Iran's not going to make us forget about Epstein. Like, come on, man. There's so much legitimate information that clearly is suspicious regarding what went on with Epstein, to not discredit it. But it's like the people who make all the crazy, insane allegations about no matter what Trump does, it's bad. And it's like, there's plenty of legit stuff you can question about the guy, but you delegitimize yourself when you start just anything and everything is a conspiracy. Everything's Donald Trump trying to do this and that and so forth. And it's just... So anyhow, apparently Zorro Ranch, digging holes, law enforcement for the first time out there. And like I said, if they find something, that'd be awesome. Don't know if anyone would be held accountable, but if they don't, it'll just be further proof that even the law enforcement that is doing the investigation is on it as well. Springfield's Talk 1041, I'm Nick Reed. Sarah Myers.
Thank you. The Pyramid Roofing Company, we had some pretty strong storms roll through the listening area last night and early this morning, especially the southern counties and the western counties. If you woke up this morning to yellowing on your ceiling, drips, or missing shingles from the strong winds, make sure that you go with a trusted, certified roofer. And I always recommend Josh and his team over at the Pyramid Roofing Company. They offer emergency tarping services. They do free roof inspections, and they offer discounts for our military and our first responders on new roof installs. So if you have storm damage, or maybe you just want to do a checkup on your roof, reach out to Josh and schedule that free roof inspection. You can find all of the contact information for the Pyramid Roofing Company under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at KSGF.com.
A man charged with murder in the death of a woman at that Chiefs parade shooting from, what was it, a couple years ago now, to be released from jail. This is from KMBC. One of the suspects in the deadly mass shooting near Union Station at the tail end of the Kansas City Chiefs Super Bowl victory parade and rally entered a plea to a lesser charge in court on Monday. Dominic Miller, originally charged with second-degree murder, unlawful use of a weapon, and 2 counts of armed criminal action in connection with the shooting that killed Lisa Lopez Galvin, entered a guilty plea to unlawful use of a weapon. Yes, murdering someone with it. The second-degree murder charge was dropped. The unlawful use of a weapon was reduced to a Class E felony. Miller has been sentenced to 2 years in prison and will receive credit for time already served. Miller's attorney said that Miller had been in custody for more than 2 years and is expected to be released from jail soon. Court records said the shooting followed an argument between 2 groups at the end of the rally. Prosecutors alleged at the time that another suspect, Lindell Mays, was the first to pull a gun during the event, but that it was Miller who fired the fatal shot. A third adult, Terry Young, is also set to face trial in the shooting. Mays won't face trial for his part in the rally until May 29th of 2027. Young's trial, scheduled for March of 26, has also been delayed. Miller himself spent weeks in the hospital after being wounded in the shooting. 3 suspects under the age of 18 were also charged. None were certified to stand trial as adults, meaning the cases remained in family court. And so, of course, that is part of the problem as well. But this right here demonstrates why more gun control laws are irrelevant. When it comes to restricting our human rights and civil rights to protect ourselves from other people, these laws should not be in place anyhow. The government does not have this human authority over us. But aside from that, let's say for a moment that it was government's place to take away our ability by way of firearms to protect ourselves. It doesn't work. We know, based off of the numbers, the areas of the country with the most restrictive gun laws are the areas in which most people die because of guns. And while there are a number of different reasons that can be pointed to that create that scenario, this is certainly one of them. And that is when people do commit crimes with the guns, and it's always, it's disproportionately in areas that are run by Democrats, they let these people off with a slap on the wrist. This guy went from facing second-degree murder charges to time served and it getting knocked down to a nothing charge. And the environment is one in which these criminals know these things. They understand that they can go to an event like a post-Super Bowl parade. They can get into a gunfight. They can shoot someone. And there's a very good chance that it'll get kicked and they'll just be right back out on the street, which is exactly what happened in this case. When Democrats talk about need for more common sense gun control, it is total and complete BS. Because when the criminal commits an act with a firearm, they are the ones who don't even punish the individual to the extent that they should be punished. What is the point of creating more laws you're going to ignore? Now, of course, you and I understand that for the left, laws are only there to be used as weapons against political opposition. So somebody like a Kyle Rittenhouse, they'll go after him for, just throw everything in the world they can at him for legitimately protecting himself with a firearm. But if you are somebody that is of a certain demographic and you open fire into a crowd and you shoot someone and you're charged with second-degree murder, don't worry, we'll knock it down. Go ahead, you're free to go home. So they pick and choose how it is that the laws are applied. And what we find is disproportionately in the areas that they control, these blue areas, the areas that have the biggest problem, that are populated with politicians and prosecutors who call for more gun control laws, are the individuals that never enforce the laws in the first place, unless somehow it suits them, again, from a political context. Springfield's Talk 1041. I'm Nick Reed. Pyramid Roofing Company text line: didn't the guy that just killed the two officers in Christian County and, of course, wounded two others get out of jail/prison from Kansas City after serving 10 years for attempting to shoot an officer before? Nothing like soft on crime in Kansas City and everyone everywhere else. It wasn't. I don't believe it was Kansas City, and I do think it was in the state of Kansas, though I don't remember off the top of my head exactly where it was. And he did attempt to kill a police officer in a shootout, and it was knocked down to where I don't even think it was a full 10 years. It was something else that was knocked down. And so for attempting to take the life of a police officer, this individual was given much, much, much less time than he should have. And of course, he was back out on the street, and two officers lost their lives. Two others were shot because of that. And so regardless of where it was, it's the same principle at play here. And it's just this it's such a simple thing to understand, which is part of the great frustration here. When you aren't tough on criminals, they don't fear repercussions. And there are always going to be some individuals, certain elements, that they don't care what the punishment is. But there are those that, as a culture shifts from the recognition that, hey, this is an area that doesn't mess around. If you commit a crime, you're going away, to where the criminals ultimately get to rule the place, rule the culture, that it's easier to get people caught up in that. And we see it over and over and over again. And it's no different than if you have a child that misbehaves and you tell that child, hey, if you do this, you're going to be grounded for a month, and they do it, and then you, quote, ground them for a month, but after 2 days you let them out. They know that that's going to happen. And they know next time they misbehave and you threaten them with a month of grounding that they aren't going to serve that time. It's a very easy concept to understand, yet we choose not to. Springfield's Talk 1041. Hey, got a spike in folks watching us on YouTube as the stream is down.
That is
Our
correct.
apologies
Hi,
for
everyone,
that.
though.
Our engineers are aware of the issue and are looping in the appropriate individuals or looping in people trying to find the appropriate people to figure out what the problem is on that. So we are working on. But those of you who are watching on YouTube, welcome. And if you haven't checked us out there, Springfield's Talk 1041. That's where you can find us and see us in studio. So hello, all of you watching right now. And are people allowed to comment and chat
Yeah,
in there
of
also?
course.
Oh,
There's
well.
tons of comments in there,
It's just,
actually.
yeah, there you go, everyone. Just live it up. Ozarks elder law. One of the big obstacles I know people have about doing that sort of planning is the cost. You think about attorney fees and you hear $100, $200, $300 an hour. I have no idea. I've never hired an attorney. How does that work? And, it's just the consultation, the cost of that, and then to determine what needs to be done, like the prep work, right? That's where most of it is. Ozarks elder law, they understand that that is a massive obstacle for a lot of people, and so people get themselves, sadly and unfortunately, in real binds because they do not have all of that legal paperwork taken care of. So that consultation that could take an amount of time that normally would cost a lot of money, that is a courtesy. They provide that to you as a courtesy, and they'll then let you know what it is that it will cost in order to get yourself all set up. And we talked with Lori Rook recently on this, and what'll happen is when you set up an appointment, they give you sort of a worksheet, if you will, of things that they will want you to bring for that consultation. So the consultation isn't, oh, well, you need to get this, and then all of a sudden it's a second visit that does cost you money. That it's not like a bait and switch situation. They'll let you know ahead of time, hey, here are the things that we're going to need in order to get all this taken care of during the courtesy consultation. And then you'll be able to know what needs to be done to make sure you and your family is protected and exactly what that'll cost. And if you think, well, I've done it before when I lived in Mississippi, before I moved here, every state's different. So you may think you're protected when in fact you aren't, because every state, like I said, is different. And if you downloaded one, did it yourself, I'm just telling you, that's not going to cover it either. OzarksElderLaw.com, 10 area locations in order to help you. Free courtesy consultation. Get it set up now. I wanted to, CNN, these networks, they will at times publicly acknowledge that they're trying to right the ship, not politically turn it to the right, but just be more normal and be less of a propaganda outlet for a political party and go back to the roots of just covering the news. I talked about the HBO movie Live from Baghdad that came out years ago, and I was at my desk, and for whatever reason, I just pulled up a clip on YouTube from it. And then it compelled me to watch some actual coverage of the Gulf War during the Herbert Walker years, in which CNN was the only 24-hour news network. It was a network that was mocked by all the major outlets because you can't do news 24 hours a day, which some people argue legitimately you still can't, but it's just done anyhow. But CNN went from this network that was mocked by all the others to being the only one that was able to broadcast out of Iraq live, during that initial launch that took place. And I was watching clips of that actual day or night. It was night over there when we launched the attacks. And it just struck me, even the overall feel, how CNN during that period of time was a real legit serious news outlet. Not that they didn't have their biases, but they were still serious. And you compare it to today and what a joke they are. I mean, legitimately not serious, legitimately a joke of a network. And obviously MSNBC or MS Now is the same, but it was just interesting to watch actual CNN footage of the launch of that original war in Iraq and just the sense of sort of gravitas that was there and the seriousness of it compared to what they put on the air today. And it's just an embarrassment. The problem is when they get these new CEOs in that announce, okay, well, we're going to sort of reset and we're going to be a place that people know that they can come and get the news, is they keep all the same people. And the people are the problem at these networks. It's the people. Some industries are driven by machinery, and the machinery is operated by people, but ultimately the product is the result of the technology and the machinery. The people are trained to use the machinery. A lot of industries are driven by software, but industries like news, right now anyhow, still, it's cultivated and created by the people. And so when you have networks like CNN that are clearly problematic and have really degraded themselves to where they are just a fraction of what they were once upon a time when it comes to an audience, and they certainly aren't producing the product they were once upon a time, and someone comes in saying, we're going to fix this, if you don't get rid of all the people, you're not fixing the problem because they are the problem. It would be similar to, let's say, you get a couple of these, what was it, a few years ago, certain flights, they were kind of falling out of the sky, and it turned out there was a software issue or something. And so immediately the flights were grounded and that component was replaced. Well, that makes sense, right? What would we have said if they decided all of a sudden just to change pilots and change flight crews and change flight attendants, but leave the software in place? You go, well, that doesn't make any sense because that's not the problem, was the software. But that's what happens with these news networks, whether it is someone like Barry Weiss at CBS or the CNN. I don't even remember who's in charge there, but I remember coming in and, we're going to fix this problem and we're going to once again become a relevant news source that isn't a political propaganda machine. Yet you keep the same people. Well, they're the problem. You're not changing the problem. And it's just... It's such a remarkably easy thing to recognize, but the denial of the people who come in to fix the problem, yet they don't fix the problem. They keep the problem in place. It has been on full display, CNN, with the coverage of this terrorist attack, targeting the, quote, anti-Muslim Islamophobic people that were protesting outside Mamdani's Gracie Mansion. And it first got noticed because of the headline that CNN had put up, and then they corrected it. It was brought down, that painted the terrorists as just a couple of teenagers that were sightseeing through New York, and they, just happened to get caught up in this thing and threw a couple of bombs, and it was all presented as almost as if it wasn't even their fault. Last night on CNN, and I'm going to play the audio for you coming up, you had the host of one of their shows flat out lie, claiming that Mamdani was the target of this terrorist attack. When there's no disputing that of all of the people that might have been in that proximity, he was an ally to these individuals, or at least they would see him as an ally, given that they're Muslim and he's Muslim and that they're all lovey-dovey with terrorists. And he's like, hey, global jihad's cool. And his wife is giving thumbs up on social media to the October 7th attacks. And he's, bringing into Gracie Mansion people that celebrate acts of terrorism against Jews. So it's very, very clear who the target was, yet CNN claiming that he was the target. Let's get the latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see showers and thunderstorms likely throughout the day, otherwise cloudy, with a temperature falling to around 45 by 4 p.m. Tonight, mostly cloudy with a low around 30. For your Thursday, sunny with a high near 60. And for Friday, sunny skies with a high near 67.
Right, so when it comes to the terrorist attack that took place targeting protesters outside Mamdani's mansion on over the weekend, and they yelled Allah Akbar while doing it. It's all. I find this relationship between the left and terrorists to be somewhat humorous because the left does everything they can in order to cover up the motivation of the terrorist, while the terrorists are literally like screaming mottos so that the world knows. It's got to be very frustrating for them. Like, what more do we have to do? We yell in the name of Allah. We yell Allah Akbar. We write these manifestos. We do all of these things. We, ahead of time, tell you, we are going to bring you down. We are going to kill the infidels. We use the same methods that we use all over Europe and other parts of the world. And how much more clear can we make it why we're doing this? Yet the media is like, now there's no known motivation for this latest attack. It must be a frustrating thing to be a terrorist with liberal media trying to cover for you constantly. I mentioned CNN at its shameful post framing suspected ISIS-inspired terrorists as Pennsylvania teenagers enjoyed a day in New York City. That's literally how it opened. And they would have to bring it down. And if you didn't see it, when CNN first posted the story, it read as follows. 2 Pennsylvania teenagers crossed into New York City Saturday morning for what could have been a normal day, enjoying the city during abnormally warm weather. But in less than an hour, their lives would be drastically changed, as the pair would be arrested for throwing homemade bombs during an anti-Muslim protest outside of Mayor Mamdani's home. Here's what we know so far. So you can see what the framing here is. Essentially, they were victims. They were just a couple teenagers just having a nice, warm spring day in New York City, and then they came across these evil anti-Muslim protesters, and it just forced them to react. I mean, what would you do after all? Then, so that was soon after the attack took place, and CNN pulled it down because, as you can imagine, most normal people found this to be atrocious. And then it became very clear why they did what they did. Very clear that these were Muslims that, again, yelling Allah Akbar, and they were targeting quote, anti-Muslim protesters outside of Mamdani's mansion, Mamdani being a Muslim himself, who cozies up with individuals that promote terrorism. This is last night on CNN, and this is the host, Abby Phillips, that is pre-selling the upcoming segment regarding this terrorist attack. If I can get got my papers everywhere here. Here she is in that segment.
2 Republicans say Muslims don't belong here after an attempted terror attack against New York's Mayor Zohran Mamdani, and the House Speaker Mike Johnson says nothing really to condemn those comments. Another special guest is going to be with us at the table when we come.
I mean, straight up lie. You cannot claim you did not know. Clearly, this is similar to a couple of instances in which you had people on the left claiming that it was a conservative that assassinated Charlie Kirk. Like, that doesn't really add up. Or it was a MAGA person that shot Trump. I mean, you actually had some of these people on the left making these claims. Like, that doesn't make sense, right? And so these Muslim individuals that yelled Allah Akbar when they threw 2 weapons of mass destruction. This is the exact same sort of weaponry, IED, that has been used to kill hundreds of people over the years in terrorist attacks. Same thing. And they threw it in the middle of a bunch of anti-Mamdani protesters, Mamdani, who is of the same religion as the bombers. And so, I mean, it's just, it doesn't even need to be explained here. It's just straight up lying. And these networks wonder why it is that people do not trust them. And they will blame someone like Donald Trump for the fact that they have no credibility. A part of what is being, the real outrage isn't the terrorist attack, of course. Their outrage is, and this is what that story was about, GOP Representative Andy Ogles sparking major uproar because he had posted in reference to these Muslim terrorists, quote, Muslims don't belong in American society. Pluralism is a lie. Well, now we find the trigger point for the left. It's not the terrorist attack. In fact, most of them totally silent on it. No outrage. Some of them, when they thought that it was potentially they first heard that there was some sort of explosive devices found at an event with anti-Mamdani protesters, and they're thinking, these are right-wingers, and so they began to speak up. The moment, however, they found out that it was actually Islamic terrorists that carried out the attack, no condemnation, mouths shut, zero. But they're tripping over themselves to condemn the Republican congressmen who said Muslims don't belong in American society, pluralism is a lie. I mean, Hakeem Jeffries, this is why House Democrats will defeat you in November. You've got, Debbie Newsom's office. It's just all the same stuff. Suddenly they're outraged. Now, the response to the outrage from the congressman read as follows: to Hakeem Jeffries, Gavin Newsom, and the high-ranking Democrats who flooded X to condemn me. A Muslim shot and killed 3 Americans in Texas. 2 Muslims tried to blow up New York City again. Meanwhile, all DHS counterterrorism programs are unfunded because you shut them down. I think reasonable people can look at what he posted and say, yeah, I don't agree with that. I don't believe that we should say there's no room for Muslims in America because some of those Muslims are terrorists and some of them, while maybe they're not terrorists themselves, support terrorism. I disagree with that. And I think that's perfectly legit. What should, however, be noted is the selective outrage from Democrats. And of course, there is going to be a level of outrage simply because it's political opposition. Anytime, Democrats are very fond of saying there's no room in America for these people. There's no room in America for that sort of thing. Now, the minute a Republican says it, suddenly they find it to be anti-American and outrageous. But the primary point here is that given the context was a terrorist attack, how outraged they are over the speech and opinion of a member of Congress, yet when it comes to the actual terrorist attack, in which just by the apparent incompetence of the terrorist, people were not killed, that they're silent on. No condemnation. They have no trouble claiming there's no place in America for that sort of rhetoric from the congressmen, but they seemingly have a very difficult time declaring there's no place in America for people who want to murder other people. And I think that for all of the focus they want to put on, this tells us who Congressman Ogles is. Well, your outrage about that, but silence about an actual terrorist attack, tells us a lot about you and the Democrat Party today. Being told our streaming is back up and running, but those of you who, for perhaps the first time, have been visiting us on YouTube, more than welcome to stay there if you'd like. 1041 or Springfield's Talk 1041. That's how you can find us there. But did you see that? Yeah, we're back up streaming, correct?
That is correct.
This is, yes. I didn't test it, but this is what I'm told. Did you test it?
I have not, but I
Okay.
will here in a second.
All right. I'm sure it's working.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. Two things, KSGF.com, Lunch Bunch, Godfather's Pizza. Get signed up there for that. And then also Cardinals v. Cardinals. That's right, March 23rd. St. Louis Cardinals against the Springfield Cardinals assuredly will be sold out, but you can register to win a family 4-pack. Your chance to do that, simply go to KSGF.com. What a great homeloan.com for all of your home loan needs, refinancing, reverse mortgages. Perhaps first time. There's a lot of misconceptions people have because the good old days. I think I even heard, was it one of the shows, and they were talking about, I don't know, some celebrity buying some property, and they're just doing the calculations, and they're like, I mean, okay, first you got to think 20% down, and that's conventional wisdom. Once upon a time, that's what you had to have for a down payment on a home, 20% down. It's just not that way any longer. There are certainly benefits to it, but it is not always a have to. There are some instances, and the characters have talked to us about this before, in which you don't need any money down. Now, that isn't necessarily going to apply to everyone's situation, but point being is if that is an obstacle for you and you're trapped in the cycle of paying someone else's mortgage, be it a home or an apartment, and you are paying off the mortgage of whomever it is that owns the apartment complex or is seeking to own the apartment complex, but you think, I'm kind of paycheck to paycheck here, and I'm paying $1,200 or $1,500 a month in rent. I'm just not able to set aside any sort of significant down payment. Don't let that stop you from inquiring, because you may find out that you can actually start paying your own mortgage instead of someone else's without having to have some sort of down payment that you cannot get your hands on, all right? So reach out to the characters. If you go to iwantagreathomeloan.com, you can start the process there, or both Anthony and Alex's cell phone numbers are there at the top of the website. You can reach out to either of them as well at iwantagreathomeloan.com.
Springfield's Talk 1041, the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by J&S Automotive. Today, showers and thunderstorms are likely throughout the day, otherwise cloudy, with a temperature falling to around 45 by 4 p.m. Tonight, mostly cloudy with a low around 30. For your Thursday, sunny with a high near 60. And taking a look at Friday, sunny skies with a high near 67.
Yamaha, the latest company to flee California after 50 years. Add another to the continuing flight from business hellhole that Democrats have made California. Now Yamaha, the Japanese company, which has been in California for 50 years, out the door, moving to Georgia as part of a major structural reform to cut costs. Relocation won't happen overnight, obviously. Yamaha plans to start the exit in late 26. Transition stretching into 2028. Company spokesperson Bob Starr said consolidating operations in Georgia simply makes business sense. In terms of efficiency, he said, to have us all together in Georgia. All the functions of the business there, it makes a lot of sense. The department marks another corporate blow for California. Back in 2019, Mitsubishi ditched their headquarters after 31 years, moving roughly 200 jobs to Franklin, Tennessee, because it was more business-friendly. They already had part of their operation in Georgia. The company already shifted the Marine Division there in 1999, moved its motorsport operations in 19. Previously reported, In-N-Out Burger's president called out the terrible conditions for business in California. She expanded the business into Tennessee. Then, there's also the contemplated California wealth tax that's inspiring billionaires to flee as well. So all of the job creators, these people are just insufferable. Totally insufferable. They run around talking about we're going to create jobs, and then they run out the job creators. And then, oftentimes, on top of it, they're like, don't let the door hit you on the way out. Like, okay. What are you doing? All of the rhetoric aside, when it comes down to it, this is what matters. You know, there's right now the debate going on regarding the elimination of a state income tax for Missouri and instead shifting it to sales tax. And ironically, what's going to happen is the party, the Democrat Party, that is all, they've never seen a tax they don't like, they are going to suddenly claim that this is going to raise sales taxes, and that's a horrible thing. We can't do it. Suddenly they're going to be anti-tax increase. And we've talked about it before, and we'll talk about it again. What are provided as the benefits of having sales tax as opposed to income tax, one of which is people who are traveling through, tourists pay it, so that anyone and everyone who utilizes the services in Missouri are actually responsible for paying for them, as opposed to people who work here having a disproportionate financial burden to create goods and services that oftentimes are used by people who aren't even from the state of Missouri. And so, there's a debate that goes on back. Is it good? Is it bad for the economy? Oh, this is horrible for the people. And do you know what I always say? There's a couple of states that don't have them. Have a state income tax. Florida's one and Texas is one. These are two of the states that people flee to. And then the response is, well, yeah, but, you know, in Texas, they've got higher taxes here, this and that. And I'm like, okay. And so I guess we're supposed to have a debate over what's better. Is it better to have a higher income tax or an income tax at all, or to have higher taxes over here? Well, I don't know. Let's look where people move. Where is it people choose to go? That kind of tells us something, doesn't it? Oftentimes we get so lost in the debate over things that ultimately are a matter of opinion. How is it best? What form of taxation is best for the people? All the time forgetting that we can just observe where it is that people go. And these states that have the income or the tax revenue burden shifted away from income taxes are places that people prefer to be. So while we're told somehow that it's going to be really bad for the people of Missouri to shift away from an income tax and instead have it be in another form, obviously that isn't the way that it is perceived by people who move to Texas and Florida. They seem to be perfectly fine with that setup. In fact, not just fine, but they gravitate towards it. That should tell us something. We oftentimes, and that's not to say that there's not interesting reasons to figure it out, to try to determine, okay, well, why is it that people prefer this way over that way? But to characterize a shift from an income tax in Missouri to another form of taxation as something that is just going to be horrible and awful and the people won't love it, that just doesn't, the reality of how people respond to states with those sorts of setups defies that argument. I mean, you can have two different restaurants and you could sit around and debate over which restaurant is better, based off of the menu and based off of the chef and based off of, well, this restaurant focuses more on appetizers and family style, while this restaurant here is more about a 3-course meal and no, people like this better. Well, no, it's better over here. It's a better value. Have all this debate. Here's an idea. How about we look to see if one of the restaurants has a greater success rate in terms of customers coming to that restaurant? Oh, look at that. This one does. That should tell us something. And so whether we're talking about Democrats in a state like California that tell us that, oh, no, it's so much better for people to have all of these burdensome regulations and to jack up, what it cost in order to do business in our state and to jack up the minimum wage over and over again and all of these different things. Oh, no, it's good. It's great. All right, you say that. But what are people how are they reacting? And when it really comes down to it, that is the truth. To that point, another story here. Utterly unaffordable. Study reveals how Deep Blue City's minimum wage law is ravaging key industries. A phased-in minimum wage hike in Los Angeles that will mandate up to $30 per hour for hotel workers signed into law by Mayor Karen Bass is already causing problems for the hotel industry and putting the squeeze on the working class demographic that minimum wage laws are purportedly intended to help. If you're new to this game of following how this stuff works, let me tell you, particularly for those on the left, but this applies to government overall, but if a politician on the left in government tells you this law is going to help you, you run for the woods because you are the one that will be harmed. It is consistently that way. And minimum wage laws are a perfect example of that. Oh, we're going to help those entry-level workers. Oh, yes, they're the ones who suffer. Hotel Association of Los Angeles president Dr. Jackie Fia told Fox News Digital in an interview, quote, "The bottom line is the city of Los Angeles has forced a wage and benefits package on hotels that is utterly unaffordable at a time when Californians and Americans are laser focused on affordability." Holla recently commissioned a study that found hotels have eliminated or expect to eliminate 6% of positions already, which is roughly 650 jobs, since the hotel worker minimum wage ordinance took effect in September of 2025. So now, and I can tell you the way that this is how the left works in their mind. Well, we must raise that minimum wage because we care so much about these people. The plight of these workers is what's important, each and every one of them. When you point out that because of this, 650 people have lost their jobs, 650 people who might be single moms trying to pay the rent on their apartment in which 2 of 3 kids, share a bedroom, and suddenly has absolutely no job, then that's irrelevant. Oh, it's only 650. That really doesn't matter. Suddenly, each and every one of those people that were told this law is supposed to help don't really matter at all. I saw a posting made by someone. It's amazing to me, the dots that people are incapable of connecting. And I don't know if it seemed to have started. Did you see the McDonald's CEO eating that new burger that they have?
Mm-mm.
So the CEO of McDonald's, they have some new burger. I don't even know exactly what it is, but did a video trying it for the first time, and it just was, I don't know, it was not, it just was bad. And we took this little bite, and I don't know, and so people are like, I mean, the guy the whole thing was bad. And so then I think some other fast food chain had their CEO, and they kind of did a response, like, now this is how you take, and kind of just playing off of it. And I don't know if Chick-fil-A did the same thing, but there was a posting going around that was being shared by people on the left, and supposedly it was the CEO of Chick-fil-A kind of doing the same thing, demonstrating, now this is how you eat Chick-fil-A. And the posting said something along the lines of, well, how about this for a challenge instead? You pay your employees a living wage. That way they can at least afford the overpriced food that you sell. Now, many of you immediately recognize the problem with that so-called logic. In the same posting, the left, in their criticism of, in that particular case, Chick-fil-A, is they don't pay their employees enough, and the food is unaffordable to their own employees. Well, you obviously, most of you understand, okay, you jack up the cost of the employee. Where do you think that money comes from? It comes from the consumer, which means you have to raise the price of the food, and there are a couple of options. One of them is to do what is happening out in California and in Los Angeles in the hotel industry. You have to start firing employees because you can't afford them all. This is not difficult stuff to understand, which is why it makes it so frustrating. And as just a human being, the frustration of some of these people that get in charge, they know the results of this stuff. They don't care. They know that with the media on their side, spreading disinformation and covering up the realities of what these policies do, that they are able to use this approach to get elected. And if that means hundreds or thousands of people that are struggling to get by lose their jobs, then so be it. That's the price that's all part of the game to them. And the media is completely complicit in this. And who is it that suffers? Is it the big, we're really going to show the hotel industry, those massive fat cats? Are they the ones that are losing their jobs? Are they the ones that with a move like this that is, going to have their electricity cut off because they can't afford to pay the bill any longer because they lost their... No. It's the lower and middle income people. Springfield's Talk 104.1. I'm Nick Reed. Sarah Myers.
Thank you. Foreman Mechanical Heating and Air. Since we are kind of in that weird in-between weather, now is a great time to schedule your annual maintenance with Foreman Mechanical. The annual maintenance program, it can help you catch costly repairs, and it can help your unit just perform a little bit better. Plus, it gives you peace of mind. Did you get your maintenance all taken care of, Nick?
Yes, I did.
Good.
I came out yesterday, and everything was good.
Good.
I just had the routine maintenance stuff, just to make sure everything was ship-shape, and it was. They're like, yeah, everything's perfectly
That's
great.
awesome. Who came out?
Austin.
He's
And,
the
yeah, and he had, I forget the guy. He had someone, I think, kind of knew he was training a bit. Jacob, no, I forget the name, but both
Austin
top-notch
is
guys.
awesome.
Yeah, Austin's great.
He's usually the tech that comes out to my home as well, and he's incredibly friendly, and he does a great job too. So
Yeah, it's nice to have that combination.
you're in good hands for sure if Austin's out there. Well, anybody with the Foreman team. If you haven't scheduled your annual maintenance yet, make sure to reach out to Russell and have him come out. You can find all of the contact information for Foreman Mechanical Heating and Air under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at ksgf.com.
As I noted, we tend to, and this benefits the left, overcomplicate what economic policies are a greater benefit overall, and people gravitate towards it. I mean, if you've got two restaurants and one has better service, better food, I mean, you can sit around and debate academically which one is better, but which is the one people go to the most, which is the one people rave about. Actions speak louder than words, and there's truth in that. And this story is a demonstration of that. Starbucks founder Howard Schultz announcing that he and his family are leaving Seattle, picking up and moving. Anyone want to guess what state they're going to? I'm guessing that you got two states in mind you're juggling, and you'd be right, Florida.
Oh man, I had Texas.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the two.
Yeah.
Sometimes Tennessee gets thrown in there. But I mean, this, by the way, is see, people on the left or people who are really rich can afford to be liberal. They can afford it. The Howard Schultz of the world, they can just get up and move, no problem at all. And oftentimes middle-class individuals can do that too. But who is it that gets trapped? It's lower-income people. They get trapped. The lower-income people that get trapped in cities like Seattle or Los Angeles, in which the cost of living is so high and everything is so burdensome due to Democrat policies, they don't have the luxury because of those conditions to get up and move as easily as someone like Howard Schultz. By the way, Starbucks at the same time, they're opening a new headquarters. Want to guess where that is? It's the third one I mentioned, Tennessee. I mean, what do you people on the left? It's got, some of it is ignorance. And like I said, the media is complicit in this because of the fact that they do such a bad job, oftentimes deliberately, of informing the public as to the reality of these policies. And we've seen this before. There have been cities, we've gone over the local news articles in Seattle or Portland, and they will do these follow-up local stories of the local pizza place that's been there for 78 years that closed because of the minimum wage hike, and interviewing the employees that were like, yeah, I supported and voted for this. If I had known I might have lost my job because of it, I probably wouldn't have voted for it. It's not a secret that that's what happens. But it sure isn't covered by the media. Whenever these minimum wage hike stories are, it's all about how it's going to, here's this person that's raising two kids on their own and talking about how it's going to help them and, they're going to be able to, it's all of the wonderful things, but none of the reality. And the lower and middle income people are the ones who suffer. The Howard Schultz of the world, the billionaires, these lefties, they can afford to be liberal because when things get too bad, they just pick up and move. And it's amazing. It seems like it's always Texas or Florida.
Says Iran's missile and drone launches have dropped sharply as the U.S. and Israel carry out combat operations. But Iranian attacks continue. Meanwhile, Israel is pounding Lebanon with new attacks. Ed Donahue reports on other developments in the war.
Iran has effectively stopped tankers from using the Strait of Hormuz, which carries 20% of the world's oil. On social media, President Trump said the U.S. had completely destroyed 10 inactive Iranian mine-laying vessels, and there would be more to follow. A video clip was posted by Energy Secretary Chris Wright, claiming the Navy helped an oil tanker through the Strait of Hormuz. This is White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt.
And I can confirm that the U.S. Navy has not escorted a tanker or a vessel at this time.
The prospect of military escorts could help reduce oil and gas price pressures created by the war. Ed Donahue, Washington.
Parts of the Midwest faced some severe weather this week.
Several tornadoes have torn through parts of Illinois and Indiana, causing significant damage. In an area south of Chicago, downed trees and power lines are overwhelming the 911 center with emergency calls. The local county sheriff's office says a tornado struck down near the Kankakee Fairgrounds before traveling northeast into Aramo Park, where it caused extensive damage. The National Weather Service says severe storms were threatening to bring intense tornadoes, damaging winds, and very large hail from the southern plains to the southern Great Lakes. I'm Haya Panjwani.
And officials now say at least 2 people were killed in those storms. The race for the House seat vacated by former Georgia Republican Marjorie Taylor Greene headed for a runoff next month. Republican Clay Fuller and Democrat Sean Harris were the top 2 vote-getters. More on these stories at townhall.com.
Dennis Prager here for AmFed Coin and Bullion. I've always been a strong believer in precious metals investment, and I've always been fascinated with rare coin collecting. But owning the wrong coins that only make dealers a lot of money can be catastrophic for your investment portfolio. AmFed Coin and Bullion specializes in taking people out of non-performing coin portfolios and turning them into gold, silver, or platinum bullion. They tailor a portfolio based on your goals and not what they want to sell you. You'll never experience scare tactics, misleading hype, or high-pressure sales from owner Nick Grovich and his very knowledgeable staff. They will evaluate your portfolio, show you how your coins have performed, and take the time to educate you on the ugly industry practices so that you can make an informed decision. Smart people can make very bad investments when they're under pressure and lack the facts. Call 800-221-7694. That's 800-221-7694. AmericanFederal.com.
7 American service members
Springfield's Talk 1041, Hour 3. Welcome, everyone. My name is Nick Reed, Hunter Hardscapes and Outdoor. Actually, yesterday had Bob over, St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements, and we were out there on that outdoor living space, standing around the fire pit, chatting, just about having some St. Clair of the Ozarks work done. And he's like, "They do a really good job." Yeah, they do. Absolutely do. I mentioned communicating with someone that was getting ready for what they said was a pretty extensive project, and usually people that are pretty smart with their money, particularly when it comes to spending it in meaningful ways, they like to talk to other people and ask probing questions. And you find that a lot when it comes to people who are smart with their money and investing in their home, not just financially for financial purposes and improving the value of it, but just the home value of it and having those spaces. You can entertain folks or have others. And I mean, I can't recommend enough. And they said, yeah, we've talked to some other folks too, and they just all sing the praises. And it is because they're just, I mean, you can't get any better when it comes to the quality, and it's the quality of the people, the workers as well. I think a lot of us have gotten accustomed to just our culture. You have some work done and the people just do it, and I don't know, there's just a feeling like, oh, we're here to do the job and then get out of here. And I don't know, there was just, to me, in my mind, when they were doing our project, I thought, I bet this is what it was once upon a time. Like, this was the standard. Absolute best, hardworking, out here with a good attitude, and maximizing our time instead of taking breaks every opportunity we have. And you just love to see that sort of work ethic still exist. And so in addition to the quality of the product and just the area, the level of expertise, having that sort of work culture, all of it together provides you the absolute best when it comes to your lighting, when it comes to your drainage, when it comes to your landscaping, when it comes to your hardscaping with Hunter Hardscapes and Outdoor. Did you have that letter up still?
Oh, yes, I do.
We were talking in, I don't know, the 6 o'clock hour, one of the hours, about this sign with a QR code that the city has had in place for, I swear it's been over a year now, at the intersection of Kansas Expressway and Sunset. And I finally took a picture of it. I was stopped. I broke the law that says you are not supposed to utilize your phone in that way while in your car, even if stopped at an intersection. But I broke the law in order to access the QR code, because that's the only way you can get the information that the city is wanting you to get, is to use a digital device like a phone in order to access the QR code. And it was about intersection safety. And it focused some on panhandlers and so forth, but gave statistics of pedestrians getting hit by cars. But and the irony of what is considered to be one of the most dangerous things you can do while operating a motor vehicle, and that is utilizing a device like a cell phone, considered so dangerous. In fact, it's been made illegal, yet that is the only way you can access this information, is by your cell phone at an intersection where the vast majority of pedestrian fatalities, I don't know if it's a vast majority, but that clearly this is where you're going to have a lot of incidents occur with pedestrians and motor vehicles. And it's just, it's government. It just screams government. And so you actually put together an email that you're going to send the city on this?
I did about an hour ago. I haven't heard back yet.
Oh, so you sent it. Well, would you read it?
Yes. I said, hello, I have a question regarding the Help Without the Hazard sign located at the intersection of Sunshine and Kansas Expressway, specifically the sign that includes a QR code. Since Missouri law prohibits the use of cell phones while driving, including while stopped at a red light, I'm curious how drivers are expected to safely or illegally scan the QR code displayed on the sign. If a driver were to pick up their phone to scan or photograph the QR code and was then pulled over for using their phone while driving, how would that situation be addressed, given that the sign encouraging the scan was installed by the city? Additionally, the message on the sign refers to avoiding hazards at intersections. Would placing a QR code that may encourage drivers to use their phones in traffic potentially create the very kind of distraction the message is warning against? I would appreciate any clarification on the intent behind the sign and how drivers are expected to interact with it safely and legally. Thank you for your time. Sincerely, Sarah M.
Do you think they'll respond?
I don't know. Maybe. I didn't use my KSGF email, so they might.
I'm sure they'll know.
They just might.
Particularly given that we are talking about it.
On
They
air.
may be like
Yep.
saying, hey, just so you know, you're going to get this email if you haven't checked your inbox yet.
Yep.
The only I try to think
It's a legit question.
What's a totally legit question. On one hand, it sounds that, well, you're just trying to make a point. What if asking a legitimate question makes a point, that tells you something. I've tried to imagine what sort of rationale they can come up with as opposed to acknowledging, yeah, this was a real boneheaded move of ours. The only thing I can figure, if I were in that position and refused to admit, yeah, we shouldn't have done this, this is wrong, is to claim, well, it's not meant for drivers, it's meant for passengers. Well, number one, it's come on. Really? That's just inherently known? But secondly, the passenger's not the one driving, and the safety tips are for drivers. So you're like the very people that the message is for is a person driving a motorized vehicle, and so it's easy to infer that it is meant specifically for the person driving, not a passenger. So that wouldn't stand up. It'd be a weak argument anyhow, but it just trying to figure out how it is that if they do answer the email in any sort of substantial way with a real answer, I don't know what they'll say. I'm not sure. Maybe they will. They'll be like, yeah, gosh, you know what? That was a real goofy move of ours. But
well, I'll let you know if they reply.
I've been talking about this, I know, for like a year. It seems like it's been at least a year. So I can't imagine that it hasn't at some point gotten back to someone that works in the city that, oh, hey, we didn't. I know that I think it's a stubbornness thing at this point, maybe. We'll show you. But I'm telling you, if somebody gets into an accident at that intersection and they're like, hey, I was trying to, I was trying to get that QR code thing down. I mean, what's the city going to do? Well, you should have known better. I mean, you should have just ignored this taxpayer-funded sign that we put up there deliberately for you to get out your phone and use. You should have known better than to be guided by us. And is that what they're going to argue? I don't think it would absolve the person of the accident, but particularly if they got injured, is there a lawsuit? I mean, you think about the things that people get payoffs for in terms of lawsuits in which you roll your eyes and you're like, are you kidding me? It's so often used, the McDonald's and the hot coffee. And we're all like, really? You got millions and millions for this? I mean, can you not see somebody getting into an accident, getting injured and suing the city saying, I got injured because I wasn't paying. I was distracted because the city had this QR code thing up here, which clearly it has one purpose, and that is for me to use my phone in order to, and because of that, I got in this accident. You think that in this day and age, somebody wouldn't win a multi-million-dollar lawsuit against the city on that? I'm just surprised it hadn't happened yet. Latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see showers and thunderstorms likely throughout the day, otherwise cloudy, with a temperature falling to around 45 by 4 p.m. Tonight mostly cloudy with a low around 30. For your Thursday, sunny with a high near 60. And for Friday, sunny with a high near 67.
New York Post has an editorial from the editorial board. Why isn't Motormouth Megan Rapinoe using her megaphone for Iran's female soccer team? We've gotten to the point the left is so consistently hypocritical that editorials noting it are almost rhetorical themselves. Because we all know why. Because they're liberal. They're dishonest individuals that are not anchored in any sort of moral compass other than what serves their purpose. And so for so many of these left-wing celebrities that run around talking about women's rights, women that portray themselves as, this megaphone to warn people of the dangers against women when it comes to Donald Trump and all of the attention that needs to be paid and the warnings. Yet when you have women whose lives are actually in danger and maybe drawing attention to their plight could actually save their lives, they don't say a dadgum word. Zero. Now, the latest news, and there's some conflicting reports as to how many of these Iranian soccer players have accepted the offer from Australia for asylum. Initially, there were 5 that were reported, then 6, and there's some reports that while the women were boarding the plane to go back to Iran, one of the players, so there was someone at the airport with a sign that called her out saying, "Your mother said to stay." And so she escaped or stayed as well. But, that I don't know if that's confirmed yet or not. And if you're unfamiliar with the background on this, there's been this women's soccer event in Australia. I think it's like the Asian Cup or something taking place in Australia. And the Iranian team refused to sing along to the national anthem. And if you're not familiar with, obviously there's the war in Iran, but the Iranian people have been very vocal about rejecting all things that are a current representation of the current regime. You have protesters that have been waving the flag, the Iranian flag with the lion on it, which was the flag before the Islamic terrorists took over the country in the late 70s rather, and replacing them on buildings. And so the rejection of the national anthem under the Islamic regime by not singing along to it was a clear point that was being made, to the point that on Iranian national television, it was declared that those women upon return should face severe punishment. And clearly their families had been threatened because by the second or third game, they were singing along. And then Trump, there were calls for asylum from some. The Australian government essentially took the position and even verbalized it that, well, we just got to treat them like everyone else. We can't go around handing out asylum. Trump publicly condemned Australia for that and really put a world spotlight on the Australian government, and they backed down and said, okay, we will offer asylum. So there literally some of these women's lives were saved because of Donald Trump. Horrible for women, of course. Well, during this entire thing, none of these left-wingers who use their voices to draw attention to issues that the world needs to pay attention to have said a word about this. Nothing. The media's barely covering it, and when they do, it's almost like just a little water cooler human interest story. Think about the amount of noise that was made regarding the women's soccer team because of the joke that Donald Trump told to the boys' team about how they were going to have to share the spotlight and the excitement of coming to the White House, and the call that he had with, he's like, I'm going to have to invite the girls too, and they all laughed, and I mean, that was just deplorable. It was outrageous. It was every time any of the soccer players were interviewed about it, they were asked their opinion on it, whether it was a guy or a girl. The SNL had a cold open in which the guys were there after the whole to-do, and then some of the girls' team was there, and they played off of it as well. In fact, what wasn't shown was the fact that during the sort of the run before the actual live taping, because they do some run-throughs with an audience, the audience booed the male soccer players, according to, I think it was the New York Post had a story on it, because they saw him as being pro-Trump and because they laughed at the joke. A joke. So according to the left and these celebrities and these Democrat politicians on the left, we all need to raise up our arms and be outraged and draw attention to a joke that was told regarding a women's soccer team. But when you have a women's soccer team that is facing execution or torture or rape, they don't say anything about it. These people are not to be listened to. These people are not to be taken seriously. These people have zero credibility when it comes to anything regarding morality and human rights. Zero. Nothing. They are empty. Aside from, and the whole point of the New York Post piece is noting that they're not out there proactively drawing attention to this. Why is the media not reaching out and asking them their opinions on it? Why is the media not calling up? We saw the Olympics themselves. Every time any sort of athlete won a gold medal or any medal, they were asked, what do you think about Donald Trump? What do you think about representing the United States? They very, very proactively prodded American athletes on some of these particular issues. Where are they to ask the Megan Rapinoes and all of these other celebrities to ask them, hey, what is your message to the Iranian women? What is your message to the Iranian regime? What is your message? They're silent on this. And let me tell you exactly why. And there's a number of reasons, but the overriding reason is because they're afraid that drawing attention to what women go through in Iran might actually win Trump some favor when it comes to liberating the people of Iran. It might make Trump look good. It might, in the minds of some people, particularly people who care about women's rights, give them some sympathy towards Trump's cause. It might actually win some people over who are opposed to it, who didn't actually know what women go through in Iran and the sort of things that they face there. And so because of that, because of their hatred for Donald Trump, they would rather us not know about what these women are going through and just have them quietly go and be thrown into the rape torture chambers to be murdered in front of their families. Because after all, Donald Trump is the evil one. That's how twisted the minds are of these people on the left. All right, while you're there getting signed up for the lunch bunch at Godfather's Pizza, you can also get signed up. Cardinals v. Cardinals, March 23rd. The game is going to sell out, but we do have your chance to win a family 4-pack of tickets. Just go to ksgf.com, and you can get signed up while you're there. So good luck on that. I'm sure it'll be an awesome game, and that's your chance to win a family 4-pack.
Springfield's Talk 1041, the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by J&S Automotive. Today, showers and thunderstorms are likely throughout the day, otherwise cloudy skies with a temperature falling to around 45 by 4 p.m. Tonight, mostly cloudy with a low around 30. For your Thursday, sunny with a high near 60. And for Friday, sunny skies with a high near 67.
I was talking about the Iranian women's soccer team and then the lack of these so-called women's rights activists on the left, be it the Rapinoe's athletes or these celebrities, and how they're completely quiet on it, and referencing the difference between their attention to that and the joke that Trump made when it came to the Olympics and boys versus girls. And I was saying soccer, but somebody texted and it was actually hockey. I thought about, actually, you know how easy it would be to be a Democrat? Because I was thinking, if I were a Democrat, I would just deny that I said that. I'd be like, no, I said soccer. But no, we have proof. No, that's not true. No, it was, I was saying soccer, but yeah, the hockey, the women's hockey, obviously the point's still the same. And it's, I mean, just zero credibility. These people are not serious. They're bad. They're just really bad people. Sometimes there's good people do bad things and bad people do good things. And just because sometimes people make poor judgment, I've done bad things. Pretty much everyone's done bad things. But then they're just bad people. And these people on the left, especially the Hollywood celebrities, they're just the ones that demonstrate this sort of behavior, that act outraged over a joke. But then when you have a real, true situation in which, honestly, they could potentially make a difference, you know, you look at the difference Trump made. The Australians indicated they were not going to offer asylum to those women. Trump called them out, drew attention to it. He did it publicly so the world would see what was going on, and it shamed them into it. They realized the whole world was like, well, we can't send them back to be raped and tortured now. Thanks, Trump. So that was a scenario. This is one of the things about the left and F-ICE and all this stuff. It's like, you're not even adding anything. You're not adding to the conversation. When you rail about, well, Donald Trump, he's a Nazi and he's a fascist and I have a right to speak up just because I'm a celebrity doesn't mean yeah, you do have a right, but at the very least, are you offering anything new and insightful? No. You're just hitting these slogans. And you are, quote, drawing attention to things that everyone already knows about. You're not doing anything. You're not adding to anything. When it came to the situation with the Iranian female soccer players, part of the scenario was the lack of full awareness and chatter about it. Trump brought that to it. Now, it had gotten into the news, but there wasn't, again, the outrage going on out there, largely because of the absence of all these left-wingers who usually lead the outrage. This was a scenario in which their attempt to, quote, draw attention to something could have actually made a difference, but they chose not to. Thank goodness for Donald Trump. He actually did it. I don't know if you're aware of this. Most of you are not. This, again, is complete, total negligence on the part of the media and disinformation campaign / ignorance by people on the left. Do you know The Handmaid's Tale was based on the Islamic Republic of Iran and the takeover of the secular Persian culture of Iran by Islam? Now, see, most people don't know that because the left has, for some time, embarked on a disinformation campaign to convince people that Handmaid's Tale was some sort of warning about Christians running the country and the people like Donald Trump, which is why those idiots on the left would constantly wear those red robes or whatever in order to protest Donald Trump. When in fact, it was largely inspired by the people that Donald Trump is taking out. Margaret Atwood, the renowned author of The Handmaid's Tale, has often been asked about the inspiration behind her dystopian masterpiece. While some have claimed the novel is a critique of Christian fundamentalism in America, the truth is that the Islamic Republic of Iran played the role in shaping Atwood's vision. Atwood herself has acknowledged that the Islamic Revolution in Iran, which took place in 1978 through 79, was a direct inspiration for her novel. In a conversation with Narges Mohammadi, a Nobel Peace Prize laureate and Iranian political prisoner, Atwood revealed that Iran was very much on her mind while writing The Handmaid's Tale. The theocracy established in Iran drastically reduced the rights of women and imposed a strict dress code, much like the regime in, is it Gilead? I've never seen it, so I don't know if that's how it's pronounced. Evidently, that's the town or village or whatever that is central to The Handmaid's Tale. In the novel, Atwood makes a direct reference to the Islamic Republic of Iran through a history book titled Iran and Gilead, two late 20th century monotheocracies, mentioned in the end notes of the 2195 Historians Convention. The subtle nod underscores the parallels between the oppressive regimes in Iran and Gilead. They note the similarities between Iran and Gilead are striking. In both societies, women are subjected to severe restrictions and are used primarily for their reproductive capabilities. The mandatory hijab in Iran and the red cloaks of white bonnets in Gilead serve as visual symbols of the oppression. Both regimes employ religious rhetoric to justify their actions, creating a theonomonic state where women's autonomy is severely curtailed. Narges Mohammadi, who has firsthand experience with the oppressive policies of the Islamic regime, draws parallels between her reality and the dystopian world of The Handmaid's Tale. She describes the gender apartheid in Iran, where women face restrictions eerily similar to those in Atwood's novel. Mohammadi's insights highlighted the chilling accuracy of Atwood's vision, which was inspired by the real-life struggle of Iranian women. This is, it's just a parade of examples of the left actually like arguing against what they support and supporting what they protest against. And this upside-down world they've created in which they have long campaigned on Donald Trump. Boy, there's no one who loves dictators. It was a campaign theme that Donald Trump, dictators love Donald Trump. They oftentimes feigned perplexion. I just don't understand what's Donald Trump. He has this weird obsession. He just loves dictators. Yet when he takes them out one by one, they're appalled. Not recognizing, apparently, that not only is he not cozying up to dictators, but he's the only one taking them out. And while one can argue whether or not that's something that he should be doing as the President of the United States, you certainly can't argue it's a sign that he loves them. These, and I'm sorry, but they're ignorant fools on the left that think that they're somehow being clever or making a point by wearing these Handmaid's Tale, outfits portraying Trump as the dictator. Yet they're the first ones that stand out and protest against him taking out the regime that was the actual inspiration for the Handmaid's Tale. It's just an incredible thing to observe. The true stupidity that is proactively demonstrated by people on the left, particularly liberal women. And just how ignorant they are. I watched again It's a new. There's all variations of this, and you'll have somebody that goes around talking to, queers for Palestine, and do you know that actually Israel is the only country in the Arab world, in the Middle East, that gays have any sort of rights whatsoever? Oh no, I didn't know that. And I give some of these left-wing activists some credit for acknowledging that. The problem is that, and this is, of course, this is the bread and butter of the left, it is ignorance, that they convince people that they don't need to know anything about what it is that they're protesting. Nothing at all. And many of them acknowledge it. It's generally conservative or libertarian journalist, independent journalists that will go around, exactly what it is that are you protesting? Well, I don't know. They just gave me a sign. Oh, you're protesting for LGBT. Well, did you know in Gaza they throw gay people just who are suspected of being gay off buildings? Oh, no. No, I didn't know that. Yet you're out here protesting over this issue? The left has conditioned people on the left to feel righteous by protesting over issues that they themselves acknowledge they have no idea anything about. They can't explain it to you. They can't articulate even why it is they believe what they believe, which is why, when confronted, they either acknowledge, no, I didn't know that, or they start screaming into a megaphone or saying, this conversation's over, and walk away. Springfield's Talk 104.1. I'm Nick Reed. Look, everyone, it's Sarah Myers.
That is me. Springfield Livestock Marketing Center. They have two great sales happening this Saturday, March 14th. Springfield Livestock, they will host a bison and Brahman sale.
Oh.
Yeah, I know, right? Now, the bison sale, it will start at 10 a.m., and the Brahman sale will start around 2 p.m. And if you're like, Brahman, heard of it, don't know what it looks like, though. They are the breed that has the lower down pointing ears, and they also have the signature hump on their back between the shoulders and their neck. So once again, both of those sales will be this upcoming Saturday starting at 10 a.m. Now, Springfield Livestock Marketing Center, it's right on the outskirts of Springfield, right off of I-44, easy access on and off of the highway. Now, to check out other upcoming sales, head over to their Facebook page or their website, springfieldlivestock.com, to view their calendar. And of course, all of their contact information, you can find that under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at KSGF.com.
I wanted to play comments made during a press conference with Pete Hegseth yesterday, the Secretary of War. And the question that was asked, and it was somewhat open, but the journalist was noting that Israel had struck an Iranian oil facility outside of our objectives, and what that meant, and how all that sort of worked and played out, given, and some of these are legitimate questions, like, well, who's in charge? Or do you have kind of two different wars going on? I mean, because generally speaking, you have one ultimate entity in charge, and this Israeli attack is something we've been like, yeah, that wasn't really our thing. And so that's what prompted, that was the question that prompted Hegseth in this following exchange.
The president has made it clear to those concerns that we're not getting pulled in any direction. We're leading. The president is leading. He's determining where we want to go, what the outcome will be, what the end state is, with a very keen eye. And I understand those concerns because I've heard from a lot of people who I went through 20 years of those wars myself, worried about getting dragged in, worried about mission creep, worried about nation building or democracy expansion. That's never the perspective the president has pursued on this. Just because previous presidents and previous secretaries have decided to just pour more resources and more people in toward some unguided end state, doesn't mean that's the way the world needs to look today. In fact, the American people voted for a different approach. But what the president also stated from the beginning was Iran can't have a nuclear weapon. And it's one thing to say it. It's easy to say. Anybody can say that. I mean, Barack Obama said that. But to do something about it takes courage and resolve. But in that courage and in that resolve, you can also be very scoped in what you're trying to execute to ensure that the sacrifice of Americans, American treasure, American lives, all of those properly meet the objective that you're trying to accomplish. And certainly, as someone I talked out front about what the Iranians have done to our generation, yes, we're clear-eyed about it. But my job is to keep it scoped, given the directive to the president to accomplish the mission.
All right, now I want to make 2 points on this. One is more, I guess, focused in on the nuclear weapon situation and nuclear capabilities, and he noted that, everyone says we can't allow them to have nuclear capabilities, but this president actually did something about it. And so I think to myself, okay, I'm a Trump supporter, and I totally 100% agree and cheered Trump along when he was talking about we can't allow them to have nuclear capabilities. That's just something we cannot allow, particularly given that they've said, yeah, we're going to use them against you. And that's nothing Trump hasn't said. Trump has been saying that forever and ever and ever. Trump has been saying that since the 80s, before he was ever even thinking about ever running for office, when he was asked about these questions and problems that we've had with Iran. This is not some different Donald Trump. This is the same Donald Trump in terms of that perspective. And so Hegseth there noting, if everyone always says this. So but nobody actually ever does it. So if I'm a Trump supporter and I don't like this action because I feel as if it's getting us into some sort of war, and Trump has convinced me that he wasn't going to do this. What did you want? What did you think that it, like, what do you want? How is it that, because clearly everything else hasn't worked, and the Iranians have been very clear, we're going to do this. We don't care what you do or say. We're going to do this. Now, outside of any other suggestion, I suppose, well, maybe if we gave them more money like Obama did, or if we lifted more sanctions like Biden did, we just keep trying that. I would disagree. I would argue that that's how we got where we are today. That's how we got to where they were successfully enriching uranium to apparently 60%, which is bomb-grade material. This is not good stuff. So, if it's not that, and it's not bomb the facilities and the facilities to make and enrich the uranium still exists. The stuff that those facilities made still exists. And the Iranians, they said, we have enough for 12 bombs and we're going to do that. So that's why this additional step has been taken. So if not that, then I don't know if I can think of what it is that I think should be done. I guess the other option is to just say, you know what? Yeah, they can have one. Now, And then if they use it against us, you're like, well, hey, we knew, but that was just the decision we made because we didn't want to go to war over there. And who knows, you could just live through life and they have them and they decide not to use them. But we have, in all fairness, collectively declared they can't have them. And we have exercised numerous different ways of trying to make that happen. The problem is, every way we've attempted has not only prevented them from developing nuclear capabilities, but has helped advance them. The other thing that I just want to push back on, and it probably could use a little more time than I have, but nonetheless, here I go, is what I consider to be sort of the bumper sticker phrase, we've been here before. We've seen this before. Trump says that this is going to happen, but we've been here, but we know how this turns out. We have not been here before for a number of reasons. Now, we've been here before in terms of war, and some of them worked out really well, and some of them did not. But in the comparisons, I keep hearing the comparisons to Iraq. This is so different than Iraq, other than, yeah, they're both kind of over there. But, Iraq was a relatively secular regime, and Saddam Hussein was a bad dictator psychopath, but he wasn't ideologically, somebody that was like, hey, I don't care if I die, I'm going to destroy the West. And there wasn't the religious component. And as much as people feared him and were kind of glad that he was gone, there wasn't this massive, there weren't riots in the street. You didn't have thousands and thousands and thousands of people demanding that he be overthrown to go back to the way it was before. In Iran, these aren't people that they just want to go back to the way it was before they were hijacked by the Islamic terrorists. That's what they're saying. I'm not saying it's easy, but those are two very, very different things. The entire makeup of relationships in that region of the country are different now than they were then. Trump has managed through the Abraham Accords, which is something else that, well, we've been here before and tried this, but guess who never made it work? Everyone else. Guess who did make it work? Donald Trump, in defiance of what everyone said. Not to mention the advancements being made when it comes to the Palestinians and that deal. These are all things that well, we've been here before, we've tried it. Well, not the way Trump does it. Trump manages to get things done that others don't. And so while that doesn't mean by default this is going to turn out wonderful and it was the right decision to make, relying on this idea that, well, we've been here before and it didn't work, that doesn't apply. The ground is different, the environment is different, the people are different, the demands are different, and the person in charge is different. That's a whole hell of a lot different. Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed.